Alright, so last time we learned how to make different commands using Adventurelib. So we did the brush teeth command, we did a drink coffee command. Those are very basic commands, just kind of getting into the idea of using another library. Every time that we made a command, they were connected to a Python function using the @win decorator. The @win decorator comes straight from Adventurelib. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how those commands work, and how we can capture what the player types and reuse one function for multiple commands, and even make commands have behave differently depending on where we are in our game. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create our next Python file. So we are going to go up into the search bar, get that right caret, do new Python file. We're going to file, save as. Make sure you are in your Adventurelib folder. So this is the same folder that has that adventurelib.py inside of it. And we are going to call this one binding underscore commands underscore lab.py. You're going to save that. Just like with before, we need to import the Adventurelib code so that we have access to it. So I'm going to do from Adventurelib import, and I'm going to import everything. And I'm just going to come down a couple lines to give us some space and put this start method down here. The start method always needs to be at the end. And then our commands will be in between the two. All right, so let's review basic binding real quick. So we're going to create a simple @win here. So I'm going to do an @win. And I'm going to do scream. Then we need to make our function. And then inside, I'm going to make our say. And then you unleash a piercing shriek. So there is our basic binding command here. We have our @win, our function that gets attached to it. So anytime this string is typed in, this function will run. So we can check that out real quick. When I type scream, it prints that, or it says that line. Oh. And Adventurelib actually does some work for us. It does not care about capitalization, so I can do SCREAM. It still does it. Or I can do all caps. It handles a lot of the capitalization errors that can happen. Now, you can also include multiple strings that will all run the same function. So if we come up here, I can do a second @win, and we'll make this one yell. We'll throw in one more. I'm going to do shout loudly. So all three of these will run the same function. So if I run yell, shout loudly, or scream, they all run the same thing. So you could include the ability for the user to type in the same thing but different ways. Also, Adventurelib does not care about extra spaces. So if I do shout bunch of spaces loudly, it still runs the same command. So Adventurelib is going to help us out a lot to handle all of those edge cases and not make it so that we have to program in all of those ourselves. Now this is great, but everything that we learned previously for programming was building up to the fact that the user would be able to manipulate how the code ran. So if they chose one thing, something else would happen. If they chose a different thing would happen. Right now, they can type in different things, but it's always going to do the same thing because our function is the same and it's going to run the same thing. So let's add another one. This one will let us actually capture values. So say like they want to pick up a hat or a sword or eat a cheeseburger, you need to be able to distinguish what item the user is talking about. So the way we do that is with our @win. We will use some kind of command. I'm going to show the take command. And then you follow that up with an all caps item. I'm just going to do thing in this situation, but it could be any word. And making it all caps turns it into somewhat of a variable. You kind of see how that works. Now I can make our function. I'm going to call it the take function because it's the take command. And then in here, it will now have a parameter. So I'm going to do something simple, just do a say. I'm going to make a formatted string. You take the thing. So when we had functions before, typically you would call it like this. So I could do take thing. I won't do thing. We'll do take cheese. Now if I run this, you'll see it runs our function. But now, because of that @win decorator that we added over here, we're able to make the function say different things. So I could do take hat, and it says you take the hat. And I could do take ice, take the ice. So this allows us to change or adapt to multiple types of user input. Later on, we'll learn about how to make an inventory system and how to keep track of items that are on the ground in certain rooms and being able to pick them up. But for right now, I just want to introduce this parameterization of functions. We have used parameters and functions already, but this is a slightly different way to do it so that it can adapt to what the user enters. You can also capture multiple words. So say you're taking an item, but when you want to give it, you want to be able to choose where you give it to. So if I do @win give item in all caps to recipient. I make our function give. It takes in an item. And it also takes in a recipient. So now we'll do the same thing. I'll do a say formatted. You give the item to the recipient. And this allows us to take in 2 or more. You can have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 variables inside of your @win decorator, and all of them can be passed into your function as parameters. So instead of calling the function like we did before, where you would have to do the function and then each parameter, instead we can make it general, and whenever the user calls it, they get to type in what they want to put. So we can see what that looks like. I can say give wand to wizard. And it says you give the wand to the wizard. Now, one thing to be aware of is anytime we are making these @wins, the lowercase, you have to have every word in there. So the lowercase, those must be exactly the same word. If I misspelled give, if I did give, if I did give without an E, wand to wizard, it's going to say, I do not understand. We talked about how the capitalization doesn't matter and the spaces don't matter, but the spelling does matter when you're typing these commands in. One more thing you can do with these @wins is you can actually create different, you can add arguments to these commands. So if we go back up and look at our scream command, previously it did the same thing whether you put in yell, shout, or scream, but we can include an argument. So we will do, we'll do action. And for the yell, we will do a bellow. For shout loudly, our action will be a holler. And then for our scream, our action will be shriek. This means it needs an argument now, so we can put our action in. And we can replace this with our action. So now, if the user types in yell, it's going to pass in action to our function and then change what the text says. So if we run this now, if I do scream, it's the piercing shriek. If I do yell, it's a bellow. And if I do shout loudly, it's a holler. So you're able to include these actions in your command. It doesn't have to be action. Action's just a variable. If I change this to style, it will work the same way if we run it. So that's just a different way to pass in information. You could have the user type in their attribute if you wanted to. You could make it capital like we did with down here. Or if you want it to kind of be a hidden, like unique way of seeing what it does differently, then you can do it that way. Final thing is you can also call other functions inside of your @win function. So let's take a look at this. If we make an @win, I'm going to do look. We make our function look. And then we'll say something like you're standing in a quiet forest clearing. So this one works just fine. It's the basic @win that we've been talking about. If I do look, you're in a quiet forest clearing. In the future, we'll talk about how to make this look change depending on what room you're in. But whenever you're using different @win decorators, or whenever you're making functions to go with @win decorators, you can call those functions later. So let's say we're starting to make our moving, and you want to be able to move into a room, and as soon as you move into the room, you look around and describe what the user can see. So let's make our look function, or our move function. This is going to be go north. And we'll define this as go_north. We will say you head north into the woods. And then we can call our look function from the go north function that we just made. So if I run this and I go north, it runs our go north function and then also runs the look function. All right, so that is the kind of workings behind the binding commands in Adventurelib. Every @win you write is a bridge between what the player is typing in the terminal to the Python function that runs. You can capture different text, you can reuse functions for multiple commands, and you can even use logic to change what happens. In the next one, we will start combining commands with rooms and items so that your games actually feel like real worlds. But for right now, go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of the Canvas page and you will find your mini challenge to work on binding commands.